Hey everyone, it's me again, Brittany, and we're at a different angle today. And that's because I'm actually doing a challenge video, or like a tag video, which I haven't done in a million years. And I'm really excited about this one. It is the Do I Have That Book tag, which obviously you know because you've probably read the title. And this was created by keeping tabs. It reminds me a lot of the challenge videos that we used to have when like I first ever tried to make my channel in 2014, because you're supposed to time yourself and you're supposed to find a book for the following 20 questions. So I'm not really going to be telling you what the questions are. We're going to go over it in the end and we're going to see if I have that book and how well do I know my books, because honestly I'm pretty forgetful. So I'm really excited about this and let's kind of go into it. Alright, it's about to begin. And go. Oh my god, I rearranged my bookshelves and now I don't know where anything is. This is really where I'm gonna get stumped. Oh my god, I totally don't. Let's just go to the next one. Title of 10 letters long. 11. Ends with the same letter. That's asking a lot. Twilight. Mass market paperback. Oh, I totally do, and it's not on this shelf. BRB. I got it! Written by an author using a pen name. Do I? I should have looked at these questions first. Yeah. Haven't read it yet, but do I have it? Yes. Grab this one. That's an award stamp, right? Yeah. Does this have 3 people on the cover? No. It is between 500 and 510. Oh yeah. Hell yeah, and now I still need to find one with 3 people on the cover. These all have one person, these all have one person. Are you kidding me? This isn't a solo act. Yes. Okay, what? Come on. It took me 6 minutes and 24 seconds and like 56 milliseconds. That was a ride. Okay, let's go over them. I just dropped all the books. So I managed to complete all the challenges. I'm pretty sure we're about to go over them in 6 minutes and 24 seconds, which is pretty decent. For question number 1, which is do you have a book with deckled edges, I immediately grabbed Two Dark Reigns by Kendara Blake. Honestly, all the books in this series have deckled edges, and it's always been something that's very obvious to me, so I'm glad I remembered that. This is the 3rd book in the Three Dark Crowns series, which is basically about this queendom, and there are triplets born into every single generation, and they have to battle it out to become the true queen. Each of them is raised in households and trained on their specific kind of magic. We have an elementalist queen, a naturalistic queen, and we have a poisoner queen, and this is the story of the 3 sisters coming to age and having to fight for the throne. And it's gruesome, it's gritty, it's amazing. Question number 2, which is do you have a book with 3 or more people on the cover? This took me forever. I kept kind of going back to it, but I totally skipped over it in the beginning, and I didn't realize that right under it we had the Percy Jackson series. And this is the last book in the Heroes of Olympus series by Rick Riordan. It is called The Blood of Olympus, and we have 5 people on this cover. Yeah, I did it. Either way, the Heroes of Olympus series comes after the events of the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series, which is the original Demigods series with Percy Jackson as a main character. This combines Greek and Roman mythology, which is absolutely phenomenal. I thought I wasn't gonna like it nearly as much as the Percy Jackson series because obviously I was really attached to Percy Jackson and I didn't want to learn about Roman gods and I didn't want a new cast of characters. But Rick Riordan always does such a good job of creating new lovable characters and still including the ones that you loved in the previous book so that you don't feel very left out. And this one specifically because they kind of have to team up to try and figure out what is wrong with the gods that they keep splitting between their 2 personalities. Because if you guys weren't aware, Greek and Roman gods are very, very similar. Like in the way that the Romans actually kind of just took over the Greek gods just to kind of spite them and then messed around with them a little and gave them a new name. That is something that we learn more about in this series. We learn more about the Roman gods. We learn the differences between the 2 kinds of gods. I've always really loved Rick Riordan's books just because you learn so much about mythology while also having just like a really fun time. I would definitely recommend this, but you should read the Percy Jackson books first because it's like directly after the events. Number 3 is do you have a book based on another fictional story? And I grabbed A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is obviously supposed to originally have been a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but this is a very loose retelling. We do have a sort of curse that's been put on Tamlin's Tamlin's court, and Tamlin is the High Lord of the Spring Court, and we have Feyre, who is just a human girl that made the mistake of killing one of his sentries in the human world, and he took her back to his court to serve out the punishment, but we find out later on that that's not truly the case and that she's kind of there to perhaps help with the curse. So number 4 is, do you have a book with a title of 10 letters long? I'm actually surprised that I found this one as quickly as I did because I really thought I was going to be on this for a really long time, and that's going to be Glass Sword by Victoria Aveyard. So this is the second book in the Red Queen series. I have not read this series. The only thing that I really know about it is that it has to do with a world where the royals have magic and they bleed blue, and then we have one girl who has magic and is sort of entered into the royal system, but she actually bleeds red, and they don't know, and they can't know. And it's one of those guilty pleasure reads, which I'm a pretty big fan of guilty pleasure reads, so I know eventually I'm gonna get to the Red Queen. I know that the thing is Red Queen has pretty good ratings overall, while Glass Sword does not. So I'm nervous. Number 5, do you have a book that starts and ends with the same letter? That was so hard. I didn't even think that that was a thing. And then we find Twilight. So Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. Do I even have to give an explanation for this? Probably not. So basically Twilight has to do with Bella Swan, who goes to Forks to live with her dad because her mom and her dad are split up, and she meets this mysterious boy whose skin sparkles in the sun and who is dangerous and tells her to stay away, but she's his own personal brand of heroine, so how could she? Yeah, everyone knows what Twilight's about, so Twilight. Number 6, do you have a mass market paperback book? So I definitely had a couple of these, but I don't keep them on my shelves anymore. I have like an area of my house where I just put all these books that I actually don't want on my shelves, that I probably don't want to read, that I probably should just unhaul, but I am a hoarder, so I haven't. And that's gonna be The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I have since been gifted a beautiful edition of this book and just no longer have need to have the mass market paperback on my shelf. I mistakenly bought this on Book Outlet thinking it was the normal floppy paperback. Nonetheless, this counts perfectly for this challenge. I personally hate mass market paperbacks. I just don't like reading from them. I never like breaking a spine. The writing is so small. It's just not fun for me. But I know some people love them. The Name of the Wind is one of my favorite stories from last year. I don't even know how to describe this, but basically we follow Kvolf. And Kvolf is the greatest alchemist of his time. He has a tragic backstory, and we kind of follow a bar as someone starts to tell the story of Kvolf from the very beginning. And they start with his family and how they traveled and their happiness and the light in his life and how he learned to play the lute. And then we keep moving as tragedy after tragedy, Kvolf is put into the darkest place possible. He finally goes to a school where he gets a scholarship to study as an alchemist, basically, and he learns, and his mind is incredible, and you feel so many things, honestly. This book is so fantastic. It was one of the reasons that I have wanted to read more adult high fantasy, because obviously I'm a big young adult reader, but there are aspects that young adult just can't do as well as adult. Like adult, you have to have patience for, and it's not as much fun, but it is so rewarding in certain aspects. So I'm very glad with this book. I have read 5 out of the 6 books that I've shown you so far. That's actually pretty good. Oh no, I totally skipped one. So number 7 is, do you have a book written by an author using a pen name? And I thought I did. I thought that J.K. Rowling didn't use her actual name for Casual Vacancy, but she does. And other than that, I'm actually pretty sure I don't. Oh my god, I totally do. I hate myself. This totally doesn't have to count, but Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. This is Sheena Maguire's pen name, and Into the Drowning Deep is so good, guys. This is a creepy horror story about the Mariana Trench, and it is so terrifyingly good because it's scientific in nature. The science is explained so well. We follow a research group that is on this fancy ship trying to figure out what happened to Atargatis, which sailed 7 years prior to the story, and they were doing a mockumentary on mermaids, and the only footage that they ever recovered from that boat, because none of the people were recovered, is the creepiest mermaid potentially footage that you could ever have. So we finally have another research group 7 years later that is trying to figure out what happened to them and trying to figure out if mermaids really do exist and what they really are doing in the Mariana Trench. And it is so good, so creepy. I highly recommend the audiobook, honestly. I read this during October last year and it was just so good. I love Sheena McGuire's writing. I think that she does such a good job, and yeah. So Mira Grant, pen name. Can't believe I forgot that. Number 8 is, do you have a book with a character's name in the title? This one was so hard for me until I realized that the entire Lunar Chronicles series has their names on the title. I'm dumb. This is Cinder. It has to do with a girl named Cinder, obviously, and it's by Marissa Meyer. I actually didn't love the Lunar Chronicles. I loved the first book, Cinder, but the rest of them I kind of forced my way through, if I'm going to be quite honest, and I was actually really nervous about picking up another of Marissa Meyer's books, but I've since picked up Renegades, and it is probably my favorite book of 2019 so far. But anyways, Cinder has to do with a cyborg named Cinder, and she is so badass. She is a cyborg in a time where cyborgs are common, but they are still treated as lesser humans. And she just kind of works a tech shop because she's really good with other like robotic materials. So this is kind of set in a dystopian style future where the world has been split up in a different way than we currently know it. And so we have Prince Kai, and he is obviously the son of the emperor. It's been a while since I read this. Well, either way, there is a disease happening in this time that affects everyone, and her stepmother volunteers her daughter, because she hates her, because this is a kind of Cinderella retelling story. Now that I think about it, this could totally count for that other challenge. 2 evil daughters, and her youngest daughter, who had been so close to Cinder, the third daughter, is infected with the plague in the very beginning of this book. And so her stepmother, in her haste, in her anger, volunteers Cinder to this experimental research that is being done on cyborgs to figure out if they can find a cure to the plague. And a lot goes kind of crazy when they find that once they inject Cinder with the plague, it disappears. And it's really good. Like the first book. I'm telling you, I did drag myself through the last few books, but a lot of people love them, so I think that's just me. Number 9, do you have a book with 2 maps in it? This one was pretty easy for me because I remember being very impressed by Godsgrave's maps. So we have the map of the Republic of Vitrea, and we also have a map of Godsgrave, which is a city. So, oh, we have 3 maps. Look at us. So we have Crow's Rest and Crow's Nest. Do we have another one? I don't know if you guys have heard me talk about Nevernight and gush about Nevernight and love Nevernight with the entire being of my soul, but I love these books. I love Mia Corvair and I love Mr. Kindly, so let me kind of try and give you a summary of these. Nevernight is a story about Mia Corvair, whose family was brutalized while she was quite young, and she is looking for revenge, and she knows that the only way that she can ever get revenge is if she makes it into this school of assassins, a very discreet school of assassins, and is trained by the best ones out there so that she can one day get revenge for the horrors that were put upon her family. But Mia Corvair just isn't any regular assassin school trainee. She also has these weird powers with shadows, and she learned of it quite young on the same night that her family was brutalized. And I say brutalized because yes, her father did die, but her mother and her younger brother imprisoned in the darkest, most dreary, most heart-wrenching, mind-shattering prison that this world can offer. And Mia runs away, and she finds that she can commune with the shadows, and she has a shadow cat named Mr. Kindly, who is basically the sassiest but most caring shadow cat, because even though he hides his feelings with sass, he truly cares for Mia, and he is there every step of the way. And you watch Mia just come into her powers and try and figure out how to use them and how to turn them to her advantage. Yeah. And Godsgrave is the second book, so. Number 11, do you have a book written by someone who is originally famous for something else? So I haven't read it yet, but I do own Yes Please by Amy Poehler. Obviously, Amy Poehler is a comedian and an actress, and I've actually heard incredible things about this book, and I kind of want to pick it up on audio because I think she narrates it herself, but also the book itself is really pretty. The paper is that like glossy, really nice thick paper. It looks really cute. It's just an autobiography. So number 12, do you have a book with a clock on the cover? Now this one, I just automatically assumed that one of the Charlotte Holmes books had to have a clock somewhere on it, and The Last of August does. It has this little clock right there. Yep, there's the clock, and there it is again. The Charlotte Holmes books are really fantastic. I've actually been talking a lot about these on my channel since I actually just finished The Case for Jamie last month. The Charlotte Holmes books follow Charlotte and Jamie Watson, who are descendants of the original Sherlock and Watson, and we kind of follow them through their misadventures. In the first book, they are not friends. As much as Watson wants to become Charlotte's friend and wants to continue the legacy of Watsons and Holmes, she doesn't want to be his friend. She wants to be on her own, she wants to focus on her studies, or well, the things that she's interested in her studies, and she just doesn't want to be another Holmes and Watson. But when they are framed for murder, they kind of have to come together to figure out who actually murdered their fellow classmate. Number 13, do you have a poetry book? I have quite a few, but I grabbed The Witch Doesn't Burn in This One by Amanda Lovelace. I've been dying to read anything by Amanda Lovelace, and so I grabbed The Witch Doesn't Burn in This One. I'm not entirely sure exactly what it's about. I've heard that her poetry collections kind of have like brief mentions of like the kind of title that she puts on them. So like her first poetry collection is The Princess Saves Herself in this one, and this one is The Witch Doesn't Burn in This One. So it's kind of just turning all these themes that have plagued our histories, like the damsel in distress and the evil witch that has to burn, and turning them on its head. I've heard really good things about Amanda Lovelace. She does write modern poetry. Personally, I actually like modern poetry. I like all forms of poetry, so I haven't really come up with a problem with it. Number 14, do you have a book with an award stamp on it? And I got the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. This has winner of the Hugo Award of 2016 on it. Yeah, that's definitely an award stamp. It's not like an extravagant one, but it's definitely there. I have said that I really want to read this year. This is one of my 19 books I want to read in 2019 books, but I still don't know too much about it. I have a brief idea that it's kind of post-apocalyptic and that there's elemental magic, but the magic is very different than what I would have originally assumed. I'm leaving all the books linked down below, guys, just in case my summaries do not suffice, so definitely check it out for this one because I don't know the summary. I kind of want to go in blind. It doesn't make sense. I've tried. Do you want me to read it to you? Let me read what's on the back. This is the way the world ends for the last time. It starts with a great red rift across the heart of the world's sole continent, spewing ash that blots out the sun. It starts with death, with a murdered son and a missing daughter. It starts with betrayal and long dormant wounds rising up to fester. This is the stillness, a land familiar with catastrophe where the power of the earth is wielded as a weapon and where there is no mercy. I don't even know how to describe that. That doesn't even make sense to me. It sounds like a prophecy. So, number 15, you have a book by an author that has the same initials as you, and yes, I do. Thank you, Brittany Cavallero, because not only is my first name also Brittany, but my last name starts with a C. I picked up The Case for Jamie for this one, but I just could have picked up any of them. Number 16, do you have a book of short stories? I was going to try and grab 1,000 Beginnings and Endings, edited by Ellen O, because I recently read that and loved it, but I don't know where I put it in my shelves currently, so I grabbed Because You Love to Hate Me, which is 13 Tales of Villainy. And this has 13 authors in collaboration with 13 booktubers, which is super, super cool. I have not read this yet. I'm excited to. I feel like I really would like villain origin stories. I do own it though because I love supporting fellow booktubers. I skipped number 10, which is Do you have a book that was turned into a TV show? For that one, I grabbed A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. I'm sure you've heard of this TV show. It's big. So number 17, do you have a book that is between 500 and 510 pages long? I thought this one was gonna actually take me forever, but I grabbed this one by chance, and it's The Infernal Devices. It's Clockwork Prince, which is the second book in the series by Cassandra Clare. This is my favorite trilogy of Cassandra Clare so far. I feel like it's always gonna be my favorite trilogy. We're not counting those pages because there aren't any numbers on them, so it is 502 pages long. Fantastic. It is my favorite series that Cassandra Clare has ever written. I just don't think she's ever going to be able to top it, quite honestly. It's so good. It is the only series I've ever known to do a love triangle and end it correctly. To end it in a way where you're like, I'm not mad right now. We follow Tessa, who is a human girl, maybe? We don't actually know. We have a theory that maybe she is a warlock and that you just can't see her animalistic feature because of her certain power, and her power is to shapeshift. And it opens up with her being held by these two awful women that are forcing her to shapeshift and forcing her to try and control this ability that she just doesn't understand. And then she is rescued by shadow hunters, and our shadow hunters are named Will and Jem, and they are precious little beings who I will love for the rest of my life, because Will Herondale is just, and then Jem Carstairs is just, and they love each other so much. They're parabatai, and it's just so well done. It's so well done. I don't even know how else to describe this book for you. The main like villainous thing is like a weird steampunky clockwork army, which is really freaking cool because this is set in like the Victorian era. I had a great time. I need to reread that. 18 is, do you have a book that was turned into a movie? And basically every single dystopian I own was turned into a movie, but I grabbed The Darkest Minds, which is super random because I think this is the only book that I don't like. This is The Darkest Minds by Alexander Bracken. It is the first book in a trilogy. I've only read the first book and I listened to it on audio right before the movie came out. And I actually never ended up going to see the movie. I really did have the best intentions and wanted to go see it, and I just never did. I don't know why. Yeah, The Darkest Minds have to do with this world where children start to gain powers and the government is terrified of them, and they pull them away from their families and they set them in these sort of concentration camps, and it is dark, it is dreary, and we follow our characters that are kind of trying to topple this government. Number 19 is, do you have a graphic novel? And for this I grabbed the Tea Dragon Society. This is the Owl Crate edition. I do just like how tiny it is, and it is by Katie O'Neill. I have not read it yet, but I've heard fantastic things about it. Apparently it's about people that take care of tea dragons, and that sounds adorable. Tea dragons are like tiny dragons that are the size of tea, and I'm assuming there is tea that is served in this book. So yeah. And last but not least is, do you have a book written by two or more authors? I grabbed Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is a fantastic sci-fi series. We follow Katie and Ezra as their home planet is destroyed by a company that supposedly isn't evil, but is doing evil things now, and they are rescued by the Hypatia. And they are on separate spaceships. There are 3 different ones that are able to take people from the world and try and get them as far away as possible to go to Heimdall, which is a space station that you can basically take wormholes to different parts of the world. But they are followed, and there are many more things afoot. We have the AI named Aiden, artificial intelligence unit, who is on the fritz of sorts, and we just have Katie trying to survive through it all, and we have Ezra, who is her boyfriend, kind of boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, who is also trying to survive through it all. He turns into sort of a military brat, while we have Katie, who goes so ham on her hacking skills. It's just fantastic. It's so weird. There's a plague in here that is terrifying, and then Gemina just takes it to a whole other level. Gemina is following 2 other characters, and it's so good. So yeah, those were the 20 books that I needed to find for the challenge. I did kind of cheat since I'd forgotten about the pen name one, but that's okay. I did pretty good overall. Let me know if you guys have done this challenge, if you are fellow booktubers, and how fast did it take you to find all the books? I feel like most people have done it, but if you want to do it, just go ahead and do it, because that's what I did. I don't think I was tagged at all, or challenged basically, so I just kind of went for it because I thought it would be really fun. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Goodbye!